What is the difference between higher consciousness and lower consciousness? In this video, I'm going to be breaking this down in great detail so you can understand what higher consciousness actually is, because this word is thrown around a lot in the spiritual community. So I'd love to break this down and make this clear to you. My name is Harry B. Joseph, also known as Revival of Wisdom. I am the author of the Book of Wisdom, Volume 1 and 2. I've been studying the occult for the past 4 to 5 years and have personally been using the occult esoteric knowledge on myself and implementing it in my life. When I say the word occult simply means hidden. It comes from the Latin word oculus, which means eye. It simply means hidden from the visible eye, what you cannot see. So we're studying things of the human psyche, the things that we cannot see, such as thought, emotion, desire, the astral forces, imagination. We're studying the things that cannot be visibly seen, but they affect what can be seen in the material world. The most important thing that helped me understand life is that life is a mental game. It's a mental universe. Every object you see was first thought in the mind before it came a physical reality, which means mind and matter are not separate, they are one. Matter is the crystallization and the expression of mind. Therefore, higher consciousness corresponds to the mind of the individual. First, let's start off with lower consciousness. The external world is the effect, the cause is the mind. The internal world expresses the external world. Reality is created from the inside out. Lower consciousness simply means they're not aware of their internal world. They have no connection with their internal world. They act unconsciously. They are unconscious to their thoughts, what's going on inside their mind. They are unconscious of their hidden desires that drive their physical actions. They are unconscious. This is what in the occult they say spiritually dead, symbolized as a grave or a casket. Someone who is not aware of their internal world and they exist within the darkness. They think, feel, and act unconsciously. They have no awareness of their internal self. They think imagination is just a fantasy, which I don't blame them, because imagination in the modern world is painted to be some fantasy thing. Oh, you're just imagining things. But in the occult, this is a very powerful faculty of the mind. The imagination is the dimension that sits just above the physical plane, that pretty much all thoughts manifest there before it materializes in the material reality. Low consciousness simply means they are in reactive consciousness. The individual reacts to the effects that they have created through the cause of their mind, thoughts, emotions, and actions. If something bad happens in their external reality, their mind starts to think about reacting, complaining, which ultimately creates a negative cycle of manifestation. They're simply blaming the effects outside of them that are the causes of the individual's mind. They are in reactive consciousness, which pretty much has no personal power. A low consciousness also means you are emotional, reactive. You are easily triggered by situations or people. Anger, fear, defensiveness arises quickly, often before conscious thought. This is associated with the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain does not think, and it is the modality of consciousness that keeps the individual not critically thinking, simply just reacting to the world. They make decisions based on instinct. They make decisions based on fear. This is a low consciousness. Another symptom of low consciousness is that the individual only thinks in reaction to their 5 senses. They only think in the terms of their 5 senses. They sense something in their 5 senses and they simply just react and they think around the 5 senses. They do not use their spiritual faculties such as imagination, willpower. Low consciousness people are mainly stuck in their ego. The ego inside of the occult and esoteric teachings needs to be overcome. We have to face our ego, because the ego tells us we already know everything. I don't need to know anything else. I have my belief system. I'm happy with believing whatever. Everything else is just a fantasy. I believe everything that's already told me within school. And the ego stops them from expanding their mind into the esoteric teachings or more things about life. They're ignorant to gaining more knowledge because they think they already know everything that has been given to them within institutions such as schools. In the occult, we have to face our ego and submit to it and say, we do not know everything. There is so much more that we need to learn about ourselves to expand as an individual. A low consciousness person or individual is reactive Their thinking dwells in the past or worries about the future. The now is rarely accepted as it is. They're never in the now, they're either thinking about the past or the future. A low consciousness is also attachments to self-image, beliefs, opinions, roles, history, and is mentally rigid. Their mind doesn't want to expand. They're stuck on a certain belief, a certain thing, and they're not open to accept anything else inside their mind. And a challenge to them feels like a personal threat. And instead of being self-aware and responsible, they see others as the cause of their unhappiness and the negative things that they are manifesting in their reality. A low consciousness also seeks for validation outside of themselves. They try to cover things up with materialism or whatever it is. But now let's move on to a higher consciousness. This is what we call causal consciousness. Causal consciousness is a state where the mind of the individual is mastered. Their mind does not dwell on the effects of the external world because the individual who has a higher consciousness understands that the world outside of them is the effect. It is the world of form. Force and form are two dualities within the occult that are very important. Everything outside of you is form, everything inside of you is force. The forces inside of you create the form outside of you. The person with a low consciousness simply just reacts to the external world, creating a constant cycle of negativity. But the person with a higher consciousness understands that whatever happens outside of them cannot be changed. It is already manifested, therefore there is no point in complaining. If the person with a higher consciousness understands if they don't like something, they can change it internally. If they can't change it, then they change their mental attitude towards it. This is the law of polarity. Light and darkness are the same thing, but just different degrees of light, which means we have the ability to shift our mindset and perception towards things to make sure it's positive. The person with a higher consciousness, even though something bad may happen to them in the world of effect, they can change their mindset towards it and ultimately change their actions to change that reality. There's no point reacting. It's simply what we do to create the change. A higher consciousness means their mind is ordered and disciplined. They do not think random thoughts. The person with a higher consciousness and a trained mind in the occult has a mind of a powerhouse of control. They understand that the mind is the cause of all things, therefore we have to gain mastery and control over the mind, or else it will produce constant chaos. Their mind is ordered and disciplined. The person with a higher consciousness is always self-aware. This is very important. The person with a lower consciousness never is self-aware. They give attention to random thoughts, they give attention to negative thoughts, they give attention to negative imaginations, they start daydreaming about worrying about the future or the things that happened to them in the past. This is all useless. You're using the creative powers of consciousness for the negative. The person who is trained in the occult and has a trained mind with a higher consciousness understands that their mind is the cause, and they are always aware of the thoughts that they are entertaining inside their mind. There is a level of mastery where one can achieve the conscious awareness of every single thought in their mind every single day. Now, this is very difficult to achieve, but this is one of my goals personally. It is the thought that it is the seed of creation. And if we give random thoughts attention, these seeds can be planted in our subconscious and ultimately drive that effect into our reality. The trained mind, thought, and intention manifest more effectively because they arise from unity, not fragmentation. You become the conscious creator rather than the unconscious reactor. Higher consciousness also means that you know what to do to produce a change in your reality. If there's something bad happening in my reality, I know that there's some sort of change that needs to happen within me. For example, if I start a cycle of negative thoughts, I know that there needs to be some mental work constructed on my mind. This will happen. On your path of self-mastery, you will fall back into old thinking patterns or something that happened to you in the past. These little patterns will show up again. But when you have a higher consciousness, you know exactly what to do to execute on changing that part of yourself. For example, if I catch myself thinking negatively for the past 2 days, I know I need to do affirmations and to reprogram my mind to counteract them negative thoughts. Or if I start overthinking and I start to lose control over my mind, then I know I need to do a meditation of stillness where I think about nothingness and develop my willpower. A higher consciousness knows where these things are coming from because they understand themselves. Higher consciousness also means they have unity consciousness. This is what the triangle is. Unity consciousness. The I within the triangle. The I in the triangle is the number 1. The triangle is the number 3. These are the 3 expressions of consciousness: thinking, feeling, and acting. and they are one force. If they have a goal in mind that they want to create, a desire in their heart to manifest, they unify all three forces of consciousness towards that goal. They think, feel, and act. A person with low consciousness is divided within their own consciousness. They think about creating a business, they feel like they're hungry, and they act scrolling on TikTok. This is what you call divided consciousness, and this is what creates chaos in reality. Their three forces and three expressions of consciousness are not working together. When we align thinking, feeling, and acting all towards one thing, you can quickly start to generate realities and create worlds. So a person with a higher consciousness will be working, they may get the thought of playing video games, but then they remind themselves of think, feeling, and acting and get back focused on whatever they're trying to create. A person with a higher consciousness will pause before reacting. There is a stillness between stimulus and action where awareness chooses rather than reflex responds. A person with a higher consciousness has no fear inside their consciousness, inside their mind, because they understand that fear is the mind killer. It kills the creative powers and forces of the mind. Fear is an illusion, and again, going back to the law of polarity, the person with a higher consciousness understands the laws. That if there is fear, then there is ultimately an opposite of that, which they can transmute their mind from fear into the opposite, which would be strength. They start to fear something, they instantly shift their consciousness into the polar opposite of that, instead of dwelling on fear, which destroys the creative power of the mind. A person with higher consciousness understands they will never die, because they have truly access to mystical experiences, which proves to them that they will not die. The person with the higher consciousness does not identify with the ego, the name, the job, the reputation, because they understand these are constructs of the mind. When you turn off the mind, you are left with the observer. You are no longer the mind, you are the observer of the mind. The person with the higher consciousness seeks to be the observer of their life, looking over their thoughts, emotions, and never dwelling in them too much, because when you get caught up in your emotions, you will be moved by the wind of the emotions. They are the observer of them, and they are connected with their soul. They are connected with the observer. The person who has low consciousness is constantly in battle with their thoughts, emotions, and the things that are happening outside of them. Their emotions blow them away like the wind or the seas of the ocean. But the person with the higher consciousness understands they are the observer. They can watch over them. They're like a bird looking over the earth. Now, I'm not saying this is easy to gain this level of mastery, but now you can start to understand the mind of a person who has a higher consciousness and aim to become this person to ultimately live a better life. Higher consciousness is not this mystical, magical thing with, most spiritual teachers will paint in your mind. It's simply just self-control. And when you have control of yourself, life becomes a lot better. Instead of being caught up within the battlefield within your own mind and emotions, living in reaction, complaining, in a negative state of mind, the person with the higher consciousness also understands that their dreams are showing them messages from their subconscious mind. Every person, every event, everything that was said, everything that happens in your dream is a materialization of something that's going on inside your subconscious mind. If there is a person chasing you in your dream and you are in fear running away, this means that the subconscious is showing you something through the allegory or symbol of that person chasing you. There's something inside of you that you are maybe running away from, and you need to identify that and change it. So I hope this video gives you some great insight and a bit of an idea what higher consciousness is. Again, higher consciousness is about having faith, because when you were in the lower consciousness like myself before all of this, I didn't know what higher consciousness is. Therefore, you have to have faith that it's going to lead you somewhere, that the work that you are doing to try achieve self-mastery is going to take you to another level. You have to have faith in yourself that higher consciousness is going to be better for you. If you do not have faith or the desire in your heart to generate that higher consciousness, it's not going to happen. Keep your eyes on the light, keep your desire on the light, and keep faith in your heart to generate this higher version of yourself. Thank you everyone, I'll see you in the next video.